Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Avni. I was involved and supporting many countries of Central Eastern Europe to join European Union, beside the rest, Estonia, Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary, and lately Croatia. I'm also a very strong promoter. Hello from Sweden, by the way. I'm a very strong promoter of the Western Balkan countries to join European Union. And I'm happy that a colleague from Romania is there because they know what Western Balkan countries are facing now and what's to come, because the experience is rather fresh. I have having in mind that I live in a very sustainable country. I originate from the Western Balkans myself, by the way, but I live in Sweden for 30 years now. I know the sensitiveness of Chinese investments with regards to Asiatic, the previous speaker, in sensitive areas in the statehood of the countries, for instance, harbors or 5G. I think having in mind that the Western Balkan countries want to join European Union, and I'm one member, I'm just like Roxana, we are like EU citizens, and certainly we would like you guys to join us in EU when you fulfill the Copenhagen criteria. Don't you think it's important to find like a balance in between, in this context, Chinese investments in non-sensitive statehood areas, for instance, because when you join us in EU, you join us with your benefits and problems. Perhaps this question should go more to some, because when Zoran talked about the Chinese investments, we could see which country in the Western Balkans is having more Chinese investment. That was Serbia. But don't you think it should be a balance with regards to sensitive investments from China? Having in mind that you want to join us in the EU, and certainly we do want you, but we don't want to import non-security and lack of safety for our own citizens. Thank you. That's question number one. And question number two is about, don't you think it's better, or it would be more beneficial for the Western Balkan citizens to have more cooperation with India, because India is the largest democracy in the world. They can be held accountable, which does not go for China. I try to be short. I was 18 times in Africa to promote cooperation. And one of the last trips was to Benin. Benin is a very small country in Western Africa. There were like many Chinese investments, and just as the colleagues from India explained, all the workers, instead of having Beninian workers, they were Chinese. Although the labor market in Benin is very, very cheap. I don't know, you've been probably in ECOWAS region, French-speaking region of Western Africa, but they took all Chinese workers. There are 2 newspapers in Benin in Chinese. None was in English or in local languages, French or whatever. And the majority of people that I talked to, because Roxana talked about the social aspects, I talked to many NGOs, universities, beside meeting the heads of state when I was there. And they took no benefits whatsoever from these Chinese investments. In contrary, they were used. So don't you think the Western Balkan countries should learn from, for instance, there are many African countries which faced something similar. So perhaps, don't you think it would be better to have more economic cooperation with India? Because still they are a democracy, you know where you have them. And the last thing is, I don't know if you're planning to touch upon the Western Balkans cooperation initiative from Japan. Japan recently did open embassies in several countries in the Western Balkans, and they are more interested to invest. But in a sense, there is not that much of interest, with all the respect, from businesses and enterprises in the Western Balkan countries to cooperate with Japan. That was my last thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Avni. I think you spoke on the same direction like I had stated in my first comment. I think it makes sense for many smaller countries to cooperate with China. I mean, although ingrained, am I visible? So I think there is a sense of phobia today towards China, but we need to understand the fact that China has come up as the most reckonable power today, like at the world stage. And whether we like it or not, we will be dealing with China in a number of ways. Now, how countries like smaller countries and even bigger countries like India could deal with China. I think a more constructive engagement would be better. And as I said, like Zoran, we would like to write a report, a short report on how the best practices could be. And so I'll just very briefly touch one point and then like get it to the speakers. So engaging with countries like India, you mentioned. Now, one thing, since I come from India, India does not have the wherewithal to collaborate extensively. I mean, as China can, like India does not have the liquid. India does not have the liquid within quotes. So that is, I mean, we do have a lot of liquid, but the thing is, it is more of a, this is an absolute like on the ground fact I'm sharing. Like since I am in New Delhi right now, the country is very rich. The country is rich in the sense you have the cities, it is a closed economy. It is a relatively closed economy when compared to China. China is investing in countries across the globe. Now, what happened? You have people, even not the richest of the companies, not the for most companies, even people have money in hand. However, they are clueless how to invest in a country like Serbia or Kosovo. Forget Sweden. Sweden is a difficult proposition for most people here. So except of the rich companies, we are clueless how we could channelize, I mean, people could channelize money in a safer destination. I should say safe, like not, there are some problems in all Western Balkan countries. Now, I think how we could like, that remains a challenge for us. So here comes the role of like people like yourself, Roxana and others, like how can we invite more private companies and other entities to like collaborate and engage on projects which are of high priority. So you see, like I'm saying the Indian perspective, there could be other perspectives from UAE, etc. So one thing, like you need to make some reach out, the more credible actors need to reach out. Okay, we need this, and would you be interested? So it has to be a both way partnership. And so the speakers, any one of you, Zoran or Madam like Oksana, would you like to say something on Avni's question?
I mean, not an easy question to address. I mean, I wish I could have a better answer, but I think what Hriday said. I mean, it's any investor that would not be familiar with the business environment, with the economic actors, with the you know, the rules of the game applied basically in this part, would have a hard time adjusting to the specific circumstances in the Balkans. So it's not only difficult for Chinese companies, for any company in the world. What I think makes Chinese investors attracted by the opportunities here is probably, well, I'm sorry to say this, but probably it's the weaker standards being applied basically in the region vis-a-vis, you know, places like Scandinavia, for instance. And I think, but even that is changing because lack of, or I would say non-compliance with those standards basically is hitting them as well. I mentioned in my speech, you know, there are cost delays. There are all sorts of problems with, you know, with labor related issues, with, I would say, with anything that could actually cause huge cost overruns. So increasingly, you know, Chinese investments are considered as a last resort. You know, when you check all other, I would say, options, and if you cannot obtain financing or support from other sources, then you go to China. This is not what I believe China wants to have. China wants to be a preferred partner. So more and more, basically, they are eager, basically, to play according to the globally, basically, accepted standards. And in that sense, there is a learning curve, basically, for them as well.
Roxana, would you mind like sharing your thoughts on Avni's points?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I caught the first part of your question. But if I were to take the, I hope you can hear me, yeah. The examples of Romania, I think they're pretty relevant. And I could only agree with what Mr. Martinovsky said previously. We have had our own attempts of developing large projects, especially PPPs in Romania, which entailed huge effort, institutional effort. I mean, drafting legislation that was not in place, institutional arrangements that had not been in place, long procedures and long time spent. And still not all information was there, not all necessary, sensitive aspects were tackled, and years spent and legislation adopted later, these projects failed. They never became reality. They never, of course, there are political issues at hand as well, because in Romania, at least, we always have this discussion: how do we fund large project infrastructures? Do we use EU funds? Do we use state budget? Do we make loans? Romania does not have this course of taking loans. Or there has always been this discussion. Okay, look, China is willing and wanting to invest in large projects in Romania. And there's some for highways and for nuclear energy. There have been some discussions that, as I've told you, under PPP initiatives, we have drafted legislation and went through lengthy procedures, but in the end, not all efforts had been addressed by the institutions. Not all. It's very important when trying to connect investor and beneficiary from these regions to be very, very careful and thorough in integrating all aspects: legal, economic, technical, political, and so on. Because, and I'm telling you, neither political will nor economic or financial feasibility are enough. There's much more entailed. There's much more, internal intricacy that has to be approached. And I'm not sure what the correct recipe is, because we don't have it in Romania. And if I would have shared it. That would, balance this resource to invest, which exists in China, with the needs in our regions and with all the political and economic setup. We have tried and we have failed. That is all I can share.
I think this is a very interesting question, and this remains a challenge for all of us. And the purpose of bringing very distinguished people, all of you experts in your fields. So we are not doing it as an event, a standalone event. We would like to continue this as an endeavor. And the very purpose of the endeavor is to create the critical mass who take things forward, like take things in a right direction. Maybe not all of you stay connected, like you are all busy, but the thing is, we would try to create some easy systems like Google Groups, etc. Also, we had started a coalition, a global coalition for frontier markets. So we are building on such things, and the purpose is to, I again say, all of you are busy. So the thing is, we need to share some thoughts and connect on the points. Now, I have a colleague, I would say, he's a senior colleague, like he's heading the, I am not recollecting the Eurasia Bank, like which is supporting digital transformation across Eurasia Economic Union. So they are putting funds on digital transformation matters. And to my knowledge, I don't know they are collaborating with European agencies, or to what degree. So these are some of the points like we should connect with. But otherwise, if we do not do Western Balkans, after the pandemic, some countries, some smaller countries, they would again be getting into that. I mean, they would be falling into the digital dark, like what is happening in a broad region like North Caucasus. North Caucasus is a part within Russia. So we had, since our center has been trying to focus on Caucasus countries. So what we see, I mean, large parts of this entire region, they are falling far behind other places in the country like Moscow, etc. So let's start with some easy projects. Let's start with some easy projects and then take things ahead. And Avni, your connections with the region could be very useful for us taking things ahead. I am just being informed by a colleague from Syria who was supposed to be the first speaker in the next session. So Amjad is I mean, he's a dear friend, in fact, of mine. And so the person has a very interesting background. I'll quickly share. So he is on the hospital bed and he has sent me that he would not be able to participate. So I think he is suffering from COVID. So just a quick thing. I mean, he was being contacted by both fractions of Syria, the pro-war fraction and the anti-war. And so he was like a famous guy. He's in the government as well. He heads one of the largest universities in the country, and he's quite a lot of businesses. And so what he was basically trying to say, so how Syria, Asian country, which was like which entered into a very war mode some years back, is trying to come out. It has come out strong out of the war damages. Now a basic question remains: how can it catch pace with some of the other countries?